What's that? There's a Transformers trading card game? Hey, have you heard about the Transformers trading card game? I was going to do a video on the Autobot starter set, basically the current starter deck for the Transformers trading card game. That was louder than I thought it would be. But I realized that out of context of the set as a whole, it didn't really make a lot of sense. So what I did is I went out and I bought 10 packs. 10 packs of the Transformers trading cards, and I want to show you what I have learned. Let's get started. Every pack you buy of the Transformers trading card game comes with one character card and 7 of the smaller cards. The larger cards are roughly the same size as the commander cards for Magic the Gathering. So if you have any commander boxes, this is the perfect size for those cards. However, if you want to sleeve these, you're going to have to find the Ultra Pro postcard sleeves, which are a lot harder to find than you'd think. Anyway, you start off a game with a team of Autobots and Decepticons. Doesn't matter if you have mixed armies, but you can only have one version of each character. For example, I can't have both Optimus Primes on the field at once. Every character on its alternate mode side has stars. You can see, for example, this Optimus Prime has 12 stars, while this Optimus Prime only has 7. The total number of stars you can have on the field can equal no more than 25. So far, though I'm assuming, considering how many characters have more than 10 stars, chances are they're probably going to bump it up to 30, if not more, in probably a later expansion. Though I think for the first wave, the first set, 25 makes sense. You don't want the meta to be too powerful. Every character starts off with their alternate mode, and once per turn, you can transform one character from alternate mode into robot mode, or robot mode back into alternate mode. You can also, once per turn, play one upgrade card, or one action card. So, to review, in total, that is one action, one upgrade, and one transformation. That's actually pretty decent. It limits the amount of cards that can be played each turn, and makes it so that the meta game isn't just upgrade, 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 upgrade on your very first turn, and then you've got nothing. I actually kind of like that. It keeps the pace of the game fairly well. Action cards, which have a gray name with a black name on a gray box, and upgrade cards, which have a white name on a gray box. And the difference between these two is that action cards kind of play similarly to the instants or sorceries from Magic. They have different effects. For example, Ready for Action, which is one of the more common of the action cards. In fact, I happen to have 4 copies of it. For example, lets you untap one of your characters automatically, assuming it has 10 stars or lower. Seems fairly decent. That means if for some reason your character doesn't untap, or for some reason it gets tapped by an enemy card, you can untap it, assuming it's a weaker card. I find that typically cards with more stars tend to be more powerful, though this isn't always the case. Other cards, for example, Medic, allow you to remove 2 damage, repair 2 damage, which is pretty nice. One of my favorites is a uncommon, which is Equipment Special Enthusiast, which lets you draw a card for each of your upgrades. I personally think I'm going to make a upgrade-focused deck, since based on the cards I currently have, upgrades seem to be a little bit better than action cards, though I do have a couple action cards, like Equipment Enthusiast, that support them. What's really cool about all of these cards is that they use artwork from the IDW comics. So even though I don't really read the IDW comics, I'm still familiar with the art. And I looked at that and I just went, like, for example, if you are familiar, that Megatron with the artwork, the swirly tattoo on his chest, that is from the Titans Return series. And I recognize that both from the toy and from the comics that use the toy that the toys were based on. So it's kind of cool, actually. or excuse me, the comics that were based on the toys, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. Or another card that I particularly like is Peace from Tyranny. This is a very Megatron card. Look at that. You can KO one of your characters that has 6 or more stars. If you do, take an extra turn. That is, if you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, that is such a black ability. Dear God, I don't play black, but that is such a black ability. Just like I have, let's say I have 2 of the Optimus Primes, or theoretically, I have 2 cards that are 12 stars. If I KO one of them, I get to take an extra turn. Obviously, I wouldn't want to do this on turn 1, but if, let's say, my Optimus Prime only has 1 health left, probably going to die anyway. Knock him out, take an extra turn. Hopefully that'll give me the advantage I want to win. That is such a black card. They can have a wide variety of effects. I like Swap Missions, which is kind of a fun ability. You untap one of your tapped characters, and you can untap one of your tapped characters. Some characters may have an ability that activates when they tap or untap, or if you attack with, say, one character and then want to attack again with them, you theoretically could use that to your advantage. They only last for a certain amount of time, though, compared, of course, to the equipment cards. Equipment cards will stay equipped to your character, kind of similarly to an enchantment, or to an equip card, or to a TM or item, if depending on which card games you're familiar with. For example, I have Data Bank here, which is at the start of your turn, draw a card. I guess that's an addition to the card you would normally draw, which, hey, if you get this on turn 1, suddenly you have a draw engine. You get to draw 2 cards each turn. That's phenomenal. Other cards are pretty neat. For example, Piercing Laser gives your character Pierce 3. Basically, it lets them deal some rollover damage. What's interesting about the upgrade cards is that there are 3 types. There are weapons, armor. You only have 1 armor, 1 weapon, and 1 utility. So that means you could, in theory, have, depending on how many characters you have, many cards on the field, and all doing different effects that work with each other and make my arms into nuts, is what I was trying to get across the idea of. Some other really interesting ones are Flamethrower, which basically lets you flip 2 more cards when attacking. Doesn't really do anything else, but I'll explain what that means in a moment. Others, like for example, Grenade Launcher, give you +4 attack, but you can only use this once. Once a character attacks, it discards itself. Others, for example, Armor Plating, just give +1 armor. So you can have some really interesting effects with different upgrades. One I personally like, that I drew from one of my packs, is Armed Hovercraft. It's a weapon, I don't know why it's a weapon, but it's a weapon that says when you put it on a ranged character, do 1 damage to each enemy, and it gives you an extra 1 attack. Obviously, you've got the aerial advantage, but I like the idea of that as it flies in to equip onto your character, it just hits each character for 1 damage. It's kind of a unique ability. So yeah, you can see that with upgrades and with actions, you can get some interesting combinations. So now I want to talk a little bit more about the character cards. Obviously, there are Autobots and Decepticons. However, what sets them apart is their subclasses. For example, they have ranged and melee characters. Not that melee can only attack melee, or that ranged can only attack ranged, but simply just to help give them a little more distinction for certain cards. As you saw, Armed Hovercraft only works on ranged characters. If I put it on a melee character, like this version of Optimus Prime, the one that's Optimus Prime Freedom Fighter, that wouldn't really help me, but if I put it on Optimus Prime Autobot Leader, suddenly, since he's ranged, he can benefit from it. And that is also another point I wanted to mention. There are different versions of certain characters. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, I believe Ironhide, and Starscream all have, and Megatron, I believe, also have multiple versions of their characters. And their stats and abilities can vary slightly. As you can see, these Optimuses don't have identical stats for their attack, armor, and health, even in their alternate modes. And you may notice that for the alternate modes, some of their stats are a little bit different. Optimus Freedom Fighter has 5, 15, 2. Meanwhile, in his alternate mode, he has 6, 15, 1. There are also different subclasses of characters. For example, Optimus Prime and Bumblebee are leader characters. However, there are also things like, for example, Flame War. Flame War is a specialist. This means that while she isn't necessarily attack or defense focused, as you can see she has 3, 10, and 1, her abilities help out her allies. For example, with Flame War, you can see each of your characters has tough 1. Doesn't matter if your character has an ability or not, as long as she's on the field, they automatically gain tough 1. But if she transforms, now, when you flip to this mode, each of your characters gets bold 1 until end of turn. You could easily have her out and do tough 1, tough 1, tough 1, tough 1 to build up a big resistance, and the moment you are ready to attack, transform her and swing with everyone for a big, bad, bold 1 bonus. So far, there's also different alternate modes that work together. For example, Optimus Prime, you can see his middle of the 3 little tabs up top says truck. Even though it's a different type of truck than, say, Ironhide, they are still trucks. Bumblebee, Red Alert, Prowl, etc. are cars. Snarl, Sludge, and Swoop are, as you can see, Dinobots. On the other side, with Decepticons, we have tanks. Unfortunately, I didn't draw any tanks, but I do have 3 Seekers. I have Starscream, Sunstorm, and Ramjet, and you can see it all says plane for them. We have motorcycles, such as Flame War, and I think it's either Alita 1 or Chromia, who are in the first base set. We also have tanks like Megatron and Insecticons like Barrage. I realize that the starter deck itself is about $15 and that the packs are roughly $4 each, so I was willing to spend about $55 total. That doesn't seem like a lot, but I got a lot of really cool cards, and I can already piece together, I think, either 2 or 3 different decks. So take a look. Maybe you'll be surprised at what the Transformer card game can do for you. Until next time, I've been Metagross Freak, and I'll see you around next time.